Good morning, Grace Church. Oh, it's so great to be back here again. I really have such a soft spot in my heart for this parish, and I'm simply crazy about your rector. I think that Lori Worm is one of the most talented priests that I've ever met, and you got her. Isn't that awesome? That's a wonderful thing to have. I'm the priest at Christ Church in Newton, out by where the bears are, and yeah, oh, awesome! Yeah, you know where I am, man. Right on 206 out there, and Lori and I have been friends for I don't know, almost 20 years now, I think, and so we thought it would be fun if we just switched. So she's not on vacation; she's having her way with my people, and I hope she gets some of that Grace Church stuff and gets it on them, so they loosen up a bit, You guys are much more fun to preach to. You actually sort of smile and respond. And oh my goodness, to be back with Colin too. Thank you so much. It's great to hear your playing, and what you do with music just stirs the heart. And Colin, thank you. There's a lot of spiritual pollution in the air now, it seems, right? And if you're not careful, it will get on you, it will get in you, and start to darken your soul. A couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure exactly which of the weekly disasters was playing out. It seems like every Friday now there's some kind of shooting. But I was watching CNN, and I watched like way too long. It was starting to bring me down. But lying next to me was my 14-and-a-half-year-old black pug. And she actually grew up in Jersey City, by the way. And she's not a tough pug. She's not like a Greenville pug. She grew up in Newport, and so she's kind of a princess. With the dog park, She's kind of a wimp, but she's far more spiritually evolved than I am. And while I was watching, way too long and going way too far down, my dog stepped on the clicker. And I hadn't realized that she had done so. I didn't even know that the clicker was down by my side, down by her, until the channel changed. And I swear, I'm not making this up, okay? I'm watching CNN, then bang! It goes right to the dog whisperer. And it was like, she knew better, She knew what my soul needed, and it switched, and it was like, it just sort of lifted me up, and Cesar Romero can just fix a dog in a half an hour. It's so wonderful, isn't it? I mean, really difficult dogs, and my dog knew exactly what I needed. Jesus says, "Seek and ye shall find." Seek, go after something, and you're gonna get it. Jesus is teaching us about prayer. He says these things to us so that we might be persistent in prayer. He kind of urges us to become nudges in the presence of the Almighty when it comes to prayer. What is it that we're seeking? What is it that we're striving for? What is it that we long for down deep when the day is done? What is it that you truly seek? In preparation for talking with you, I've reflected on that within my own heart as a human being, as a follower and disciple of Jesus. What is it that I truly yearn for? And I've thought about all the thousands of people over the years who've come through my office and kind of opened up their lives to me. What is it that they seek? And I thought, peace of mind kind of works, peace of mind, something that we all kind of want, that seems so elusive. It dangles before us at times, and we come close, but for some of us, we're left a bit wanting from time to time. Summer kind of promises maybe, but then the peace of mind lays beyond our grasp. I was doing a Bible study recently, and I asked the people, I said, this is like 2 weeks ago, in the thick of summer. I said, do you feel closer to God in the summer with all the vacation and all that, or the rest of the year? And it was unanimous. Everybody said the rest of the year. That that even the break, we kind of think if we had more time to spend, then we'd feel closer, and it's just not the case sometimes. People keep telling me that I have a hard job. Talk about spiritual pollution. I get these things in the mail from the church pension fund talking about clergy burnout and compassion fatigue, all these warnings about the toxicity of my job. Maybe you get them from your profession as well, but they seem to come over the transom at quite a clip nowadays. Somebody turned me on recently to a guy he's sort of an old school guy, Peter Drucker, the father of management, and he died in 2005, but I just was reading some of his stuff recently, and reading Peter Drucker for me is like spiritual cyanide because Peter Drucker highlights the 4 most difficult jobs in the world. And not any particular order either. He says the most difficult jobs in the world, these 4: President of the United States, who would disagree with that? He said CEO of a hospital, the president of a university, and an Episcopal priest. That's all I need, to get up every morning and go, oh, wow, I got this hard, it's impossible, This can sort of rattle around, this kind of narrative, this dialogue in my head. Just 2 weeks ago, though, I read a survey coming out of England. And they did a job satisfaction survey of thousands of people in England. And they came out with the happiest career for anybody. Leading the pack, number 1, above any other, above doctor or social worker or anything, Anglican priest. So here it is. I'm confronted with a choice. Every morning when I get up, what do I want to be? Do I want to be the guy who's got the hardest job in the world? Or do I want to be the guy who's the luckiest guy to be alive? Through the grace of Jesus, I get to choose. I think we all do. What kind of script do we write about ourselves? Am I the one that's overwhelmed and it's just all so impossible? Oh, I'll write that for you. Yes, I will. But where does it bring me? Or can I write a different story with the help of Jesus? A different tale altogether. Listen to what St. Paul tells us to do. He says, whatever is true, whatever is pleasing. In other words, if there's anything good in your life, okay? If there's anything that's compelling or beautiful, if there's excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, he says, think about these things. Put them in the front of your brain. Think about these things. And what results from that? He says, the peace of God will be with you. At the end of this service, I will dismiss you with a blessing that talks about the peace of God that passes all understanding. Do you know that phrase? The peace of God that passes all understanding. It comes right after that section that I just read from Philippians to you. Do you know where St. Paul was when he wrote that verse? He was in jail. How can you have peace in jail? Is it possible to have the circumstances of your life all a mess, but still somewhere deep inside, you've got this connection to Jesus that brings you peace? I think so. I think it's possible to have serenity when you're not getting your way, when the world refuses to cooperate with your plans. When you would really rather be doing or having something done to you differently. But still, it passes all understanding. It doesn't make sense. I pray for myself and for you that the people who know you, the people who work with you, the people in your life will be a little bit confused by you. How is it that you're able to maintain this joy, when things aren't going so well for you? We all know people like that, don't we? I knew a guy named Frank. He was an outstanding lover of Jesus. That was the most compelling feature of him. Guy just loved Jesus to death. And it served him well, let me tell you. It served him well when Frank was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he knew that he was dying. He knew that his days were few. What he wanted most from me, besides prayer, was to be able to go over his life with me and tell me, and he told me with this kind of like childlike excitement to tell me about how good God had been to him. And we would meet a couple times a week, and he'd finish one chapter, and he'd say, all right, when you come next time in a couple days, I'm going to tell you about my time at Penn State and how fantastic it was. He was just sort of exuberant about this life review. It was really something. Now, I knew a good bit about Frank's life, and it was no bed of roses, let me tell you. I knew and had met his son, who was institutionalized with autism of the more strong form, which really made him unable to live without assistance. I had known that Frank's first wife had died of cancer. But when I met with Frank in his living room in the hospital bed, I saw a picture right next to the son that I knew of another young man. And I said, Frank, who is that? I don't recognize that person. And he said, oh, that was John, my second son, who died of AIDS in the mid-'80s, Never knew that part. Now, Frank could have told me a different story of his life. He had his share of hardship. But all he could see in that sort of blessed moment, because of his years of walking with Jesus, was the blessing. And it sort of just bubbled out of him, the gratitude of a life well lived. He could have told a different story. All those years, all the years that I've been a priest, and I almost missed it. I've said these words hundreds of times and heard them 1,000 times, and I'm sure you have too. I'll say in a minute at this altar these words. It is good and right and a joyful thing, always and everywhere, at all times and in all places, to give you, anybody? Thanks. To give you thanks. Doesn't say sometimes, all times, everywhere. Wow, this seems to be some kind of key, to opening the whole thing up. It unlocks this peace of mind that we want so desperately. This is the kind of prayer that's worth seeking. Seek, and you shall find. We know the opposite of this. We know it very well because we live in a time of great cynicism and negativity. I asked this woman just last week, I said, hey, how was your vacation? And she summarized this 10 days in the Caribbean with one word: She looks at me and she goes, rained. And that was the summary of the whole thing. Rained, and just that one utterance. You can just hear the backstory, the whole narrative of this poor woman's life. This is just another kind of indicator of how she's been screwed by life. Another thing that's gone wrong, just another piece to put into the great litany of trouble that's sort of come her way. Rained. I'm like, well, did you have fun in the rain? I don't know. Jamaica's great in the rain. Oh dear. We know the opposite, don't we? Every one of us here could make a case. We could make a case of how we've gotten a raw deal. There's nobody that's exempt. We could make a case how we've been treated unfairly. We can assemble the evidence and present it to the judge and jury, and we will win that case. We'll prove it, and we will win. Congratulations. You are now awarded your court-appointed misery as victor of that case. Every person here can make a different case as well, can't we? We can put together a compelling and irrefutable case for how we've been blessed beyond measure. We can make that case as well, and we can, with the help of Jesus, we can win that case too, and enter into this peace that passes all understanding. And in it, we can discover God's will for us. Do you know what God's will is for your life? It's probably the second theological question that people ask me the most. The first is, why has this suffering come my way? But the second one is, what is God's will for my life? Well, you can go home with an answer, because I've got it for you today. I grew up Southern Baptist, so I know the Bible, believe me. But somehow I missed this particular part of the Bible from 1 Thessalonians 5. It's brilliant. It spells it all out. This is what St. Paul says. He says, rejoice always. Don't stop praying. Pray all the time, much like Jesus today. And he says, give thanks in all circumstances. Sounds familiar, huh? Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God for you. It's God's will that we have fun. It's God's will that we stay connected at all times and in all places with Jesus. And that we give thanks no matter what. That's God's will for us. Pray without ceasing and give thanks. A lot of people struggle in their private prayer life, but I am encouraged by the words of Meister Eckhart. He said this: if the only prayer that you are ever able to utter in your whole life is thanks, that would be sufficient. Amen.